I let my family disown me. They sold me to save their business. 20 years later, I bought it and fired them. My name is Julian, a 38-year-old male. I grew up in the shadow of Carson and Sons, a once prestigious manufacturing company founded by my grandfather. There were 3 sons. My father Robert, the CEO, Uncle Richard, head of sales, and Uncle David, head of operations. And then there was me. From birth, I was the spare, the second son. My cousin, Ethan, was the golden child, the firstborn grandson, charismatic, a natural leader. I was the quiet, numbers-oriented one who preferred the engineering schematics to the boardroom politics. The hierarchy was clear. At family dinners, my grandfather would toast to Ethan, the future of Carson and Sons. I was an afterthought. My ideas to modernize the company's aging infrastructure were dismissed as expensive fantasies. Ethan's same ideas, presented weeks later, were visionary. When I was 18, the 2008 financial crisis hit. Carson and Sons was bleeding money. A massive loan was due, and the banks were refusing to extend credit. The only offer on the table was from a ruthless competitor, Crane Industries. They would cover the debt, but they wanted a 51% controlling stake and a Carson on their board to maintain the brand's image. The family called a meeting. My father, uncles, and grandfather were there. Ethan, 22, and freshly minted with an MBA, sat at my father's right hand. The terms are non-negotiable, my grandfather said, his voice heavy. But Crane has one specific demand for the board seat. They want Ethan. My heart sank, but I wasn't surprised. Then my father spoke. There's more. To secure the deal, we need to show unity, a consolidated family front. Julian, he couldn't meet my eyes. Your share of the inheritance, the one your grandmother left you, we need you to sign it over. It's a show of good faith, to prove the entire family is all in. I was stunned. My grandmother's inheritance was my only safety net, my ticket to college and a life away from their toxic dynamic. And if I refuse? I asked, my voice trembling. My Uncle Richard was blunt. Then the deal collapses. The company goes under, and it will be your fault. That night, my mother begged me, please, Julian, do this for the family. It's just money. We're your family. So, I signed. I sold my future to save theirs. The deal went through. Ethan got a 6-figure salary and a corner office at Crane. The family celebrated their brilliant salvation. A month later, I was called into my father's home office. Julian, he said, not looking up from his desk. With the restructuring, there's no place for you at the company. We've decided it's best if you find your own path. I was disowned, not from the family name, but from the family business, the only thing that mattered to them. They had used me up and thrown me out. I left with nothing but a backpack and a burning fury. I spent the next 20 years in silent, relentless pursuit of one goal: revenge. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through night school for computer science. I lived in roach-infested apartments. I taught myself everything about venture capital, private equity, and hostile takeovers. I started a software company in my tiny studio apartment. It was a niche product for supply chain logistics, the very thing Carson and Sons desperately needed, but had always ignored. I poured every ounce of my anger into it. It took off, slowly at first, then exponentially. I never took a penny in outside funding. I owned it all. I built my empire in the shadows, under a holding company name that had no connection to me. I watched Carson and Sons from afar, with Ethan at the helm under Crane's thumb. The company was slowly being bled dry. Crane stripped its assets, outsourced its manufacturing, and ran the brand into the ground for short-term profit. My family, now minority shareholders, watched their legacy crumble, their dividends shrinking to nothing. They had no idea that the Orion Logistics, the tech giant that was dominating their industry, was mine. The call I'd been waiting for came on a Tuesday. My head of acquisitions informed me that Crane Industries, over-leveraged and poorly managed, was itself on the brink of collapse. They were looking to offload non-core assets, including their controlling stake in the hollowed-out shell of Carson and Sons. It was time. I made an offer through my lawyers, a lowball, all-cash offer to take the failing company off their hands. Crane, desperate for liquidity, accepted immediately. I called a board meeting of Carson and Sons, my father, uncles, and Ethan, now in his 40s and looking worn, gathered in the same boardroom where they had exiled me to decades prior. They thought they were meeting Julian Reed, the reclusive CEO of Orion Logistics, to discuss a potential partnership to save their company. I walked in. I was 38, dressed in a suit that cost more than their quarterly revenue. I carried the quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from absolute power. The silence was deafening. My father was the first to speak. "Julian, what is the meaning of this?" I took my seat at the head of the table, the seat that had always been my grandfather's. "The meaning, father, is that you work for me now?" I slid a copy of the acquisition agreement across the polished mahogany. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Orion Logistics is the majority shareholder of Carson and Sons. And I am Orion Logistics. The look on their faces, the shock, the horror, the dawning realization. Was a vintage wine I had been saving for 20 years? Ethan found his voice. You did this? You've been sabotaging us." "I didn't sabotage you," I said calmly. "I outplayed you. I built a better company while you were resting on a name that no longer means anything. You did this to yourselves." I looked at each of them in turn. My Uncle Richard, red-faced and sputtering. My Uncle David, pale and silent. My father, who finally looked me in the eye with something other than disappointment. "Your positions here are terminated, effective immediately," I said. "Security will escort you out." But my revenge wasn't complete. As they stood to leave, humiliated and broken, I stopped them. "I'm not you," I said. "I don't believe in leaving family with nothing." I handed each of them an envelope. Inside is a deed to a modest, fully paid house and information for a trust fund that will provide each of you with a lower middle-class income for life. You will be comfortable. You will want for nothing essential. My father looked at the papers, then at me. His eyes filled with a confused mix of gratitude and shame. "The condition," I continued, my voice turning to ice, "is that you never speak to me again. You will live out your days in the comfort I provide, knowing that the son and nephew you cast aside is the only reason you aren't destitute. You sold me for a company. I'm buying you back with a pension." I stood and walked out, leaving them in the tomb of their own legacy. I didn't destroy them. I made them permanent dependents. I gave them the safety they denied me. And in doing so, I took from them the last thing they had, their pride. The company that was their god is now mine to do with as I please. And I think I'll let the Carson name die out, replaced by something new. Something I built. The revenge was perfect. But as I sit in my silent penthouse, I realized the boy who just wanted his family's approval died a long time ago. The man who replaced him got everything he wanted, and it's as hollow as the company he now owns. TLDR, my family forced me to sign over my inheritance to save the family business, then fired me. I spent 20 years building a secret tech empire, then bought the failing company that had consumed my family, fired them all, and provided for them on the condition they never contact me again, forcing them to live on my mercy.